Welcome to an episode of Vital Doc Talk, and today we have Dr. Patricia Boulogne on the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Patricia.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate being here.
All right, and let me give you a quick introduction on Dr. Patricia. I have some notes here. Dr. Patricia Boulogne is a certified functional medicine practitioner, coach, chiropractor, speaker, and author. She has helped thousands over the last 35 years. She has over 3 decades of experience managing lifestyle, chronic pain, and in-person whole pain. Basically, the result is that she finds out the why behind somebody's issue and the cause of the problem, identifying the starting point. And then after that, she helps people begin their health journey to live longer, happier, better, and healthier. She's been on TV. She's been on multiple outlets online, and she's a dynamo of a guest. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I guess why don't we dive right in here, on your background. So over 3 decades of experience, you must have seen kind of like a lot of change from probably things are a lot more digital now than they were. What are like the major changes you've seen through your experience?
Digital was a big experience. When I started my practice, we were all paper.
Wow.
And so we went, from having, like handwritten notes, and then I changed them over to things you could circle. And then the insurance companies started getting more active and, requesting reports. And so developed forms so that I could circle the things and the reports going to insurance companies and that type of thing. And that was probably the biggest thing. And then it's starting to collect, where you're looking at email lists. And then coming back, so I took some time off and then coming back and going, oh my God, there's marketing so different now. and then having that, exposure for that. So those are probably the biggest things that I can think of.
Okay. And I love that, you have a vast amount of experience. I don't think one episode is probably even enough to cover like 5%. But we'll do our best to kind of the major moments. So you've seen both, obviously, digital and non-digital advertising sources. Anything that you think is in common between these two? So like, what are the similarities and what are like the biggest differences?
Well, I think you can never underestimate good network marketing. And so like whether you do your network marketing on LinkedIn or on Facebook, whatever venue you use, you cannot underestimate networking in your group, having that, building a relationship, and having the ability to speak with people, whether it's like in our venue that we're doing like right now or in person, and not having any like fear of asking somebody. And the other thing that I did in my office a lot is I asked my patients for referrals. So when they started to get better, I would give them 5 cards of my business cards with their name written on them. And then I would have this conversation with them about how much they thought they were getting better. And I said, well, how many people do you know that have problems with their back? Because I was being a chiropractor then because I treated pain and I didn't want people to adapt their lifestyle to pain. So if I helped you, how many people can you tell? And I did a lot of patient education and took the extra time in the beginning to do that. So I made this very horrible drawing of the brain, and the spine, and going out to every organ and tissue in the body, and giving it to the patient as a present. I signed it and dated it. And then the next time they came in for their report of findings, I made them draw it for me.
Wow, that's awesome.
And what happened is that they got, the stuff that they forgot and we filled in. I just took 5 extra minutes, filled in, made a huge difference in my retention stat with people.
That's fantastic. I love that because I guess that's a little gold nugget right there right now for you doctors listening. Teaching other people is one thing, but then testing them, and doing exercise with them to make sure they know they retained what you taught. That's a whole nother thing, because then they could definitely, I think, put that into practice. I love that. And you also made another great point that I really agree with, whether it's, advertising, digital, billboards, whatever. At the end of the day, we're all building one-to-one relationships with people. Right?
Oh, for sure.
That's what you're good at.
when people, I gave a talk out in California and at the kind of like late summer or something like that to 45 functional medicine doctors,
Mm-hmm.
and what they wanted to know about, because they get so much influx on those forums about like, here's the new thing, here's the new study. And so I asked them, how is your practice doing? And you could have heard a pin drop. And I said, I asked the doctors, I said, how many times have you ever heard your patients say, I just love my doctor just gets me. And
Very
so many people, they're out of there, only 3 people raised their hand. And in my notorious way of always putting my foot in my mouth before putting my brain into gear, I said to them, I go, well, you must not be medical doctors then. And they weren't, they were chiropractor, acupuncturist, and somebody who was, forced to come to this talk that night. And so it's really important, when someone comes into your office, it's a little thing, but it's like who your front desk is. If you don't have a good front desk and they don't support you, and you're always feeling like you're putting Band-Aids on the front desk stuff, get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need that job. They need to go work someplace else. And people need to have, feel welcomed enough into an office so that they could just feel like they're hanging out. I always used to say my office is your home.
Wow.
And so, and if they felt uncomfortable for any reason, I was always the first person to know, because they would say that Dr. Pat, that new girl doesn't know how to spell. She doesn't know a G from a J. She couldn't find my travel card. So it's important that, your people who are coming in, because that's one of the biggest reasons. You can be the best doctor in the world, but one of the biggest reasons people leave an office is the front desk.
Wow.
And so so that communication, like smiling when you answer a telephone someplace, that's really, people can feel that. They can feel that congeniality come through on the airwave. It's very similar.
So I think that's huge. You're right. And we talked about some back office practices in another episode about how, your back office needs to be all on the same page, the message, the experience. It sounds like what I love about your message is it's very clear. It needs to feel like home, and everybody knows what home feels like to them, obviously. So that's key. Do you have like a special process you go through with your front office or your team to make sure that, they feel like home, or is it like certain steps you take? What are your tips?
Well, I had a couple things, one thing, I have procedures in the office. Someone walks in, they're given, I already had patient files already, because this was in paper, right? So they were already set up, so that was given to them with their name already on it. So they knew that we were expecting them. And then, and now I would make them have their paperwork filled out before they come in, or else I don't see them. Because I have, my time, especially for coaching, is chunked out for an hour. And I mean an hour. I got 1 hour, 55 minutes. I'm wrapping it up and I'm moving on. And I'm on a call in 5 minutes with someone. But but for people, it's just like that home feeling. I didn't have ugly chairs. My chairs were nice. They were comfortable. They had water. They had something fun to look at. They always had current material to read. So they weren't reading the People's Magazine from 8 years ago. And, they had things beautiful to look at, so, and, I had a nice carpet, and it was very comfortable. I was ahead of the spa curve, because people used to say it wasn't spa colors, but it was that kind of comfy, really nice curtains, in the rooms. They give them some privacy and that type of stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember going to a spa with my girlfriend recently in Alaska, and we went in there and they had some tea for us. They had some snacks. They had a comfortable couch and all that. And I was like, this is pretty nice. It starts before even the real experience starts, right? It's already, once they're through the door, then the whole thing starts right then and there. So I like that.
Well,
That's
I like
awesome.
when people, when they're driving to, if they're driving to see you, they're already they don't have to go oh my God, I've got to go to this doctor's office again. And as opposed to going, hey, Dr. Pat, I found this really funny thing that you'd be really interested in. I had those kind of conversations with people, and I never forced anybody to call me Dr. Pat. I told them the only time they had to worry about that, because they had a hard time pronouncing my last name, was that they could call me Dr. B in the office, or Pat, or anything that was nice. But when they introduced me to a friend, if they saw me out, they had to introduce me as, this is my doctor, this is my doctor. And that was the only requirement that I had. I wasn't, I've never been attached to my name, like, oh, you have to call me Patricia as opposed to Pat.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's nice, I don't care. It's good energy.
I love that. Good energy.
Yeah.
That's great. And so you're really good about building up these relationships. So what are some of your tips and tricks to build up one-on-one relationships with your clients? Is it really always in the practice and making sure those experiences go well? Or is it maybe after the practice you do something or events? What are your tips there?
Well, when I had my practice, it was all paper, right? So one of my favorite, I wish I would have invented it, were Post-its. So when patients, things that weren't on, meant to be on a patient file, like there's your soap notes, somebody was like, oh, I go, so what are you doing this weekend? They're going, oh, Art and I are going over to Martha's Vineyard, because my practice was on Cape Cod. So I just wrote on a note, just say Art, Martha's Vineyard. So the next time that they came in, I would say to them like, hey, how was your trip with Art over to Martha's Vineyard?
Nice.
And so they would go like, God, you have such a great memory. And I said, well, that's because that's how I ended up getting my, high grade point.
That's like
in
high
school.
GPA. I love that.
And I would see people out. I lived on Cape Cod at the time. And when I was on Cape Cod, I had a lot of visibility. A lot of people knew who I was. So things that I did it never took me in and out of Lambert's fruit store and, there's to get fish and stuff. It always took me 40 minutes to do like a 5-minute trick. People would see me, they go, what are you eating tonight, Dr. Pat? Because I was always big on nutrition and, and some tips like that to be able to go from point A to point C. So that was always those kind of things. And I never, it's just like, I always tip very well when I was out, locally. And I would walk up to people, even in airports, and I would, because I'd be bored and I'd be looking at people and I'd go, wow, how long have you had an ankle problem?
Oh, because you
just
diagnosed.
Oh, I don't have an ankle problem. And I said, really? And I said, well, you're very flat-footed on that right side. So when you like walk, you kind of like one side slides in like this when you're walking. So the functionality isn't great. And I said, where are you from? This is like if I was at an airport. And I go, here's my card. Because I always thought about spreading goodwill. So here's my card. Go find a good sports physician. And if you can't find somebody in your area that you're comfortable in going with, then call me up and I'll find them for you.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great.
And then locally I would walk up to people and say, ask them like, how long did you have that? You've had a low back problem for a while, right? And because I would never do it out at a restaurant. And if I was out with my girlfriends and we met someplace to go have a glass of wine, I never, on Cape Cod, it was so swell. I kind of avoided those scenarios. I would do that like up in Boston, but not down there. And so I was always really conscious about like, where I was at, how I was seen, especially in the community. And so I was at a meeting, in Boston about 5 years ago or something like that. And my name came up when we were introducing ourselves. And this woman goes, oh my God, I have a patient of yours, from your office. I sold it. And she said, every day your name comes up in my office somehow, some way. And that was like, 8 years later or something like that. So that's really cool. So I'm glad that I had like a good, I had a good presence and I had fun. I did good, had fun, and was able to help a lot of people. And I also never said no to anybody.
What do you mean by never said no?
So when someone was in pain and they wanted to come in, they called up. I never said they had to wait till the next day. Even if I only gave them emergency care, I physically saw them. If they couldn't get there till 7 o'clock at night, or they had to crawl and it took them an hour to go from their car inside my office, I talked to them the whole way.
Wow.
I said, let's see what we got going on. Let's see what I can do today. I don't know how much I can do today because, but I never said no to somebody who was in pain ever. They could come in that day.
That's awesome.
That was my thing.
So even if you were overloaded, you were always looking for a solution, right? You were never like, oh, sorry, you can't do that, and just turning people away. And nobody likes that. I think that's awesome, because what I've been getting from the different things you've been saying, whether it's the airport, and even if you're not their local doctor, right? You're still going out of your way and helping somebody and trying to find the solution, even if it's just not even just you. It's that mindset. It's that good energy you're talking about.
Yeah. And also when I worked in my office, I worked on Einstein's time. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, go into that. I'd love to hear more about it. I think we talked about it a little bit on our intro. Yeah.
Well, Einstein's time is when you're not, Newtonian time is when you're looking at your schedule and you're going, oh, I start patients. For me, I would start patients at 8 o'clock in the morning and I would finish at 6 o'clock at night. And I had a 2 to 3 hour break in the afternoon, depending upon what happened in the morning. So I would, I never looked at my watch, until I went out to lunch and then clocked the time in my head. But I always finished within 15 to 20 minutes on time. So I was 100% focused or 150% focused on what I was doing in the moment. And I loved what I was doing. I like puzzles. I love taking and making sense out of complex problems for people. Whether it's, diet, exercise, positive mental attitudes, structure is function type things. I love taking that complexity and making a better solution and making it simple so that anybody can understand it. I get up in the morning thinking about what kind of problems I can solve, and not in that simplistic of a sense, but that's where I function the best.
I love that.
That's what my practice was about. So I had fun. So I always ended up, very rarely, unless I had an emergency right at the very, very end of the day, I always ended up walking out of my office between, my last patient was at, 5:50. I always walked out between 6:15 and 6:30 every time.
That's great. And you're always just focused.
Yeah. And I also had patients who, I saw a significant amount of people within a day. Sometimes I had seen up to 70 patients in a day when I was young and spry. But, and those were like on special occasions, but generally speaking, I only work 4 days a week.
That's great. That's a very balanced life. What do you feel like, a lot of doctors obviously work a lot of hours. Working only 4 days a week, what advantages do you think that brings, besides obviously an extra day off?
Well, you don't have a day off.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to hear.
It seems like that because whatever you can't do Monday through Friday, because as insurance companies wanted more paperwork done, my Fridays were about part of it was about me, and self-care. And the other part of it was, getting whatever I had to get done, or else then you could take files home. And 90% of the time, those were for like writing reports and stuff like that, because all my paperwork was always done at the time I saw the patient. So I didn't have to go sit down at the end of the day and write it out. I did everything at the same time. Getting, being that kind of organized. So I don't like when I see chiropractors who work, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm thinking, why are you doing that to yourself? It's like going up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's just like have more energy. And they could have other situations, like they have kids, they've got you have two parents who are working. So you that would be something that would change that. But as a doctor, you can choose your hours, so I would come in at 8 o'clock, leave at 6, Monday through Thursday. Friday morning, I would get up and go have a nice breakfast and do a little networking. And, and so then, then after that, I would go, go to the office, or avoid the office completely because I've already been there so much and saturated. I would go out and do something like go walk on the beach, go get my nails done, go buy food, go think about like on the weekend what I wanted, what I needed to do. And I always went in with a good mindset for the following week. So I was like fired up, ready to go. Let's rock and roll. And see what, that you could do. So you can really make a big difference in people's lives just by being present.
I love that. Because it sounds like your Friday, none of them are off days. It's just whether you're working in your practice 4 days but the fifth day you're working on top of your practice and the processes and the networking and building up the practice, which I love that. It reminds me of another doctor I was talking to, and I was telling her the exact same thing. She said, "Oh, I take Fridays off." I was like, make sure your Fridays, you keep it that way, even as you grow your business, because you always want to be working on the system and not just
Well,
be
you
trapped in
never
it.
know when you're going to meet somebody. So when I met somebody on the weekend, somebody would go, "Oh, can you check this out? Can you fix this out?" And I said,
Hmm.
"Sure, I can. Here's my card. Call up and make an appointment."
Hmm.
Just because, it's just, you really need to have boundaries, and you need to
Hmm.
be able to say, you know, "Can I help you? I believe I can help you, and I want to help you." Two different things, and so here's my card, come in, and so, and then you build a rapport. They remember seeing you from wherever that was at. Or I went and talked to the Lions Club one time, and I
Hmm.
had the referral from one of the guys there. His wife was at HR at Cape Cod Hospital,
Hmm.
at the time. And she must have referred to me in 2 years, like 70 patients.
Wow.
And so she came in herself, and he finally came in, and it was just like, sometimes when you talk about the waiting room, thing we talked about before, I would have to come in there and go, "Yo, talk later." Go next door and get coffee. I've got to adjust you. I've got the rest of the day to work through. But I was very clear on the Einstein time and never looked at my watch when I did it. And then it was always very positive. It always flowed. There was always something, it was something really to be like hooked in, connected to, and it gave me energy. I was never went out of work feeling exhausted.
I love that. So, and you've given a lot of really great tips, right, that are really effective. And one of my favorites personally is taking those meticulous notes on every patient or,
Mm-hmm.
everyone in your network, and really making them feel like, hey, this person really cares because they took the time out to write these notes down and they remember. So my last question for you today, would be coronavirus, right? And that topic. What do you think is like the one thing other doctors should focus on to bounce back from coronavirus, especially those who have been hit hard?
I first think they should tell them the truth about viruses.
Mhm.
And that viruses have been around for a long time. People get them, they go through a process of having them. The coronavirus is especially vicious, especially if you have secondary problems.
Mhm.
So people who have secondary problems, they should be very mindful about what environment they put themselves into. There's some basics that people should do themselves. They should stay very well hydrated. They should get enough sleep.
Mhm.
Um, but and stop watching TV, because the more TV that you watch, the more you get wrapped up into the coronavirus. I
Mhm.
saw a great cartoon of somebody window open up and the TV going out, and it said how to get rid of the coronavirus.
Mhm.
Um, it's important to do smart things like wash your hands,
Mhm.
and with soap and water as soon as you come in. I have in my car, I have colloidal silver spray. And
Mhm.
so when I come out of the grocery store, I spray my hands. I also have the gel, and I'll put the gel on, and then I'll spray my face, just in this area, because that's where the virus needs to go in, basically, into your body. So the wearing a mask other than an N95
Mhm.
basically is the only mask that protects you from the virus. So people who are out and wearing masks and doing, you can't get herd immunity if people are social distancing.
True.
And you can't get herd immunity if you're staying at home.
Mhm.
And in every epidemic, and especially in the influenza of 1918, they found people who they rotated outside because they didn't have enough space, that those people who were outside got better than the people who were inside. So they just, they started opening windows. Florence Nightingale said, "Wash your hands." It's just like that's
Mhm.
been around for a long time. And so doing things that, that make sense and being smart about it, and eating really good foods for yourself, like eating protein, fat, and carbohydrate, eating like a Mediterranean diet, and making sure that you don't have things that make more inflammation in the body. A
Mhm.
great health hack that I discovered through all this, and I've used myself, is activated charcoal. Because activated charcoal, when you take it, whatever is there that's not supposed to be there kind of acts like glue for it, right? And when I started getting out that ache, and the pain, like between, like behind my legs, and starting to feeling like I was getting sick. You know, I started at 3 o'clock and I took one every 2 hours until 9 o'clock, took a hot shower, went to sleep. I woke up, I was 90% better. And a couple hours after that, after I got up, I was 150%. But you have to pay attention to those Grim Reaper signs at the beginning and not wait. So it's just like, that's why Chinese ask, like, what color is the, you know, mucus? If it's clear, it's still exterior. If it's starting to get kind of cloudy, you know, just a little bit, you know, a little bit white, a little bit clear, you know, it's going in, it's going out, it's going in, going out. And when it turns to a solid color, then it has gone internal. So when it's gone internal, that means that it's just like somewhere around in here. So you can gargle with vinegar, you can drink a shot of vinegar, you can do things to create a different microclimate. Because wearing a mask is the perfect climate when that coronavirus gets through the mask and goes in, or whether it doesn't matter if it's a coronavirus, it could be any virus or any microorganism.
Yeah.
So it creates a perfect environment and where it wants to go, you know. And also people, they have found they're really telling people to be mindful about wearing masks, because people are starting to feel they're not getting enough oxygen. So it's affecting their thought process, you know, and other things. The Surgeon General, if they look up the Surgeon General mask on Facebook or on Google, they will see this. This is a new trend that's happening where they're finding that wearing masks is not to your best benefit, you know. And when you're outside, I mean, I saw somebody in a car with a mask on and went, "You've got to be kidding me." It's just, you know, but it might have been just easier, you know, when they were driving. So
interesting.
So those things with coronavirus are important. I mean, it's just like, and not just with coronavirus, with the flu. I mean, so they discovered that those numbers, you know, are definitely off.
So your tip for doctors would be to take care of themselves and their patients first, I guess, is what you're saying, and then and that's how we could bounce back.
Until the patients, you know, like, you know, like that. To me, the truth is that, you know, that people are more susceptible to the flu or any type of flu, even if it's a pandemic kind of flu, because they have secondary problems. So fix the secondary problems, so the likelihood of that happening is diminished. That's what doctors should do. They should be focusing on the immune system, and they should be focusing on, you know, it's just like, well, how do I know they have a weak immune system? Chapter 7 in my book is a book of questions that focuses on how to find your weakest link, which is going to be your highest priority number, and where to focus to start that health journey that we were talking about in the very beginning.
I love that. And so, Dr. Patricia, to wrap it up, I guess, where could people find more info on you and on your book? And thank you so much for giving these doctors tips.
Love it. No problem. Anybody can reach out to me if they would like to. I'm at healthteamnetwork.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out professionally to me. I'm very approachable. And my book is called Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? I think I can get it in this view. Can you see it all?
Yep, perfect. It looks good.
Okay. And you know, it's not a long read. It's a great book for anybody who would like to advocate for their health themselves. You know, it's a great book for someone wanting to know where they're at. Where's my health today? And it's a great book to go back for a reference for that. So, you know, for me, I use this as a tool for all my coaching clients to find out where they're at. And then we assess, well, what would your goal be based upon what you know now? Because what you got isn't necessarily what you got. And that's what's really, you know, to me important, is having someone to discover. And whether they work with me is not important to me either. What's important to me is they get information so they can make better healthcare decisions, so they know which venue that they want to go with. So they can reach me at healthteamnetwork.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook for my personal stuff. And also I have a Facebook page with my same name, which I'm sure you're going to put out with this, what we're talking about today. And, you know, that's about it.
Thank you so much, guys. And that's Vlad with another episode of Vital Doc Talk. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.